Hello YouTube, I'm here today to talk with you not about chinchillas, but Chin-Cellos, otherwise known as baritone violins in the world of music. They're not a particularly well-known instrument, mainly because it's a modified instrument, and it's purely only has been conceived for people that want to achieve cello-like musical tones in a much smaller form, but it should be known that these instruments don't exactly replicate the notes of the cello, but they do give you that nice baritone bass feel that can be an added bonus if you're looking for just a little bit more tonal enhancement with your own instrument playing. Maybe you have a band and you're looking for something different. This might be the type of instrument that you would like to make and create for your own musical pursuits. So with that, I first have a recording of Go Tell Aunt Rhody, a very small short sample that I did in a duet with another violin. And so you can hear both in this, so you can kind of hear the musical overlap. So I'll let you listen to that first. Next, I have a small sample from 12 Bar Blues, and with that, this is just the Chin-Cello that I built on my own, playing by itself. You can hear it has almost like a froggy, or sometimes I say quacking element to it. It's largely due to, I believe, the simple fact that the violin body is not as deep as a cello body, so you're not going to get the full resonance on those deep notes like you would with a full-sized cello. Hello everyone, now that you've seen that, we will start going over the process of how I built my particular Chin-Cello, in case that's something you would like to try for yourself. I would just like to start by saying I will not accept any liability for any problems you have if you choose to experiment with this. So basically I'll not be responsible for any damages or worse to your instrument, your shop, your house, yourself, whatever. I'm not going to be liable, since this is a risk you are choosing to accept by moving forward here. Alright, so to get started, you will first, of course, need an old instrument that nobody cares about, that's not valuable, and could use a second life and a little bit of love. So I would say the older is the better, because we're going to be hoping for brittle glue, or no, even better, an open seam, so that way you can more easily get the top off. So first you'll need to de-string said instrument and keep the bridge, tailpiece, any valuable parts off in a safe place that you'll want for later. Then look for that open seam and gently use a thin knife, thin metal ruler, maybe even a razor blade, to stick in the seam and just slide it around to start prying the top off. You just want to slide it and maybe just gently tilt up on the knife, but no more than just a little bit. You definitely don't want to twist, otherwise you risk snapping off parts at the top, the rib. It's not a pretty picture. Once you're on the inside, you have the top off, you can make any repairs from the inside or clean up as necessary, whatever you wish. Autograph the inside, decorate it, put a sticker in there, whatever. You can go bananas from the inside. Just make sure that you keep the sound post in a safe place, just so that way you can have it reset professionally when it's finished. You don't glue the sound post in. It needs to be free and just sitting in there by tension alone, so I would put that off to the side for a professional to take care of later. So the next thing is to reinforce the bass bar. The bass bar is a length of wood that's glued to the top of the violin, and it sits opposite from where not really opposite, but on the other side of the bridge, I should say, from where the sound post is. So with that, you need to reinforce it just to help take the weight of the new cello strings that you're putting on. And for that, I would recommend picking up a small, thin piece of basswood from like a craft shop, like Joann Fabrics, Michaels, Hobby Lobby, that kind of thing. And you just need to cut it to the same length as the existing bass bar and cut it so it's curved and can fit in with the shape of the lid, so you get the most of your gluing surface that you can out of that. Carefully glue it in with wood glue and let it dry overnight. You will not be wanting to use wood glue to put your lid back on itself. You only want to use hide glue for making any adjustments to ribs, plates, internal components, aside from that one thing. And the reason is this: hide glue allows for the shearing forces to allow for the wood to separate from the other pieces of wood in the event that the wood expands and contracts too much. So that way it can be re-glued and safe for later, rather than having a cracking incident start to happen. I learned this the hard way with a different violin of my own that I was experimenting with. I used wood glue around the edges between the ribs and the front plate, and I had a crack coming from the bottom of one of the F-holes on the top lid within a matter of days. So that's not something you want to do. You want to use legit hide glue, and not just any hide glue, but the granulated stuff you have to cook yourself, because the stuff in the bottle doesn't cure quite correctly enough to keep the lid as secure as it needs to be with the tension of the strings, from my understanding and looking at different luthier sites with my own research. So you'll want to get that hide glue, and I would use a ratio of 3 grams of glue to 24 grams of water, and I made this double boiler system to do this. I put the measured amounts of glue and water into the inner crock here, and the outer pan was filled with just enough water to cover the bottom, maybe a third to a half of an inch deep, just enough to keep the top of the crock floating, but not to where it touches the bottom, and not where it's so deep that water risks pouring over inside your glue and water mixture and weakening your glue. So the stove needs to be on medium to medium low. Actually, I would even go lower than that. I would say low, medium low would be best. And the reason for that is you don't want to overcook the glue or release any toxic fumes, because you're using pans that aren't meant for stovetop use. So low, medium, low is best there. And as it heats up, you just want to keep stirring and checking the glue carefully, periodically, until all of the glue is dissolved completely, and keep the glue on that heater until you are finished, just to make sure that the glue doesn't cure too fast and wind up jeopardizing your project. So from there, you'll need to be working quickly. The lid has to go back on the instrument in a minute or less, so you can get it clamped in under 2 minutes. The glue gels up and cures very quickly, so you might want to do a couple of practice dry runs to feel confident. I would make sure your clamps are close to what you need to have them tightened to before you put them on the instrument, so that way you can just quick put them on and just quick tighten very quickly. You're not spinning your clamp around or sliding it super far and having to have all this extra time lost to the clamps, and making sure that they're kind of ready to go with the pads, so that way you can just get them on ASAP. I would prep the gluing surfaces and get them warmer, so that way it helps you have a little bit more time by running a hair dryer over the wood to warm it up, then dip the brush in the hot water that's in that outer boiler and run it over the surface just a couple times, light amounts of water. A little bit of water won't hurt it. So then quickly apply the glue with the brush, and you might do a couple coats, then quickly place the lid, clamp it quickly with those pads, and set it somewhere to dry for 24 hours undisturbed, just to make sure that it has the benefit of a nice uninterrupted gluing time. After those 24 hours have passed, you can take off the clamps and start restringing and setting up the instrument, but don't tighten the strings up fully until you've got the sound post reinstalled professionally. So you're just going for tight enough to keep your tailpiece and bridge under proper, like enough tension just to keep it on the instrument, but no more than that, because going more than that could potentially cause a top cave in or having cracking start if you tried to go the whole way. As for the size of the strings that I used 1/8 scale cello strings, so like the totally rookie cello size for a young child, and I found that to be successful. You might just need to trim the parts of your string just to make it fit inside the peg box if the peg box is particularly shallow on your instrument. So just be warned, you might have to do a little bit of experimenting there, but don't cut it very much, like just maybe a 1/2 inch at a time at most until you can start tightening it correctly. So yeah, once you get your sound post in, you can start tuning it up, getting it under full tension, and start your trials with it. I mean, really all of your experiments, musical challenges, whatever you would like to try with it. As a little addendum, you could potentially try resetting the sound post yourself, and there are tutorials and ways to measure it and do it correctly that you can find on YouTube or Google, but it is a bit tedious from experience, and putting it in the wrong way could lead to cracking or other failures. So it's worth the money to see if you can have the luthier do it, just to avoid any problems. But if you are super into DIY projects like me, you can definitely try it yourself. I did it myself for 2 different instruments and had success with it. It's just making sure that you've done your homework on how to do it. Alright, well, I hope that was a fun and interesting video for you, and that was something that enriched your musical knowledge. And again, thank you for watching, and best of luck!